Good morning, Mikhail Finkel, paralegal. The reason we had to pull this, after the original draft was put in the agenda packet, we received an email from the Charlotte County Attorney's Office. They had their special counsel look at this, and they made a few changes. They were typographical in nature or clarifying. The only one substantive change was they did put a maximum ERU of 60 units for the assessment. Currently, I believe there's 55 properties, so they just wanted to make that clarification. So you received the,
Everything looks good on our end?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, being at odds on this, Howard, I apologize for that. I got the revised draft just the other day, and in preparation for today, I went through it and saw a few things I'd like to bring to your attention, and maybe we can tweak it a little bit and then get it back for approval at the next meeting, or you can say that what I'm suggesting isn't worth further consideration. And Howard, I'm sorry, I just didn't have a chance to talk to you about this. On page 6 of the revised agreement that we got yesterday, top of the page as it relates to section 4, capital cost, provides what happens if the city elects to terminate after assessments have been imposed. There's a last sentence that the county attorney added that says, county may also terminate this agreement if county determines in its sole discretion that the actual capital cost for the sewer collection facilities is excessive. My thought is that there should be like a deadline or a cutoff for the county's ability to exercise that right of termination, so that the city doesn't expend funds unnecessarily. And so whatever that date would be amicably agreeable is something that we should include in that particular sentence to limit or to direct what the county should do if they're going to exercise that right.
So you're saying that you don't want it to go on too long with the city doing some work and then them come back and say, the price is too high, we want to scrap this?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Well, we'll know the price once we bid it. And that's when, once we bid it and we know the price, that's when the county will place the final assessment, because they'll have the. So
We will know the price. I'm sure there's going to be expenses involved in developing that.
Oh, yeah,
Developing
design.
the design and all that other kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I just think it's prudent to limit or direct when the county is going to exercise their right to terminate at the out, so that there's no surprises down the road.
What do you mean by terminate? Decide
Well,
not
it just,
to do it?
it says,
Decide not to do it.
this interlocal agreement, they can back out of the interlocal agreement, which we're relying upon to be able to fund, to provide the revenues to fund the system that we're going to be installing.
So we're gonna pay for all of the design cost and then they can still back out?
Correct.
Sure. For instance, let's say we estimate the cost for each property owner to be $15,000. Just throw a number out there. And the bids come back and it's $20,000. They could decide not to do it.
So is there some formal submission? You're saying like what, 90 days past the formal submission of the cost breakdown?
I don't know
Or
what I don't know what, that's what Howard and staff would have to work out, is what's a reasonable, right now it's open-ended.
Right.
I don't like things that are open-ended because the city or anybody could tend to get screwed in a situation with an open-ended provision in a contract, and so we can button that up. It should not be that big of a deal. We'll ask the county, we'll do something that won't be a surprise to them. It'll be a number that they can, hopefully, they can work with too. But it's a loose end, the way I look at it.
That would be fine with me, Gary.
Yeah, I just want to say, I think David's got a good point. I mean, we sat here, we know that in that neighborhood, there is controversy. There's those that really want it, and there was going to be a lot of pushback. People in the county, just like we are politicians, that can be swayed, and I don't think that we want to go down this road and then all of a sudden there's a political wind that sways and then we get held holding the bag. So I think David makes a good point.
So it's not,
I think maybe I'm missing a point. We would still be holding the bag because we're already paying all the costs to have the design done. And then, I mean, I'm not disagreeing that it should be buttoned up, I'm just saying, we've already put out the money. And so now we're gonna say, okay, you've got, let's just throw out a number, 90 days to make your decision. Well, if they decide no, we're still holding the bag for the money.
But we're limiting what we're holding.
Well, we're not gonna go any further because there's nothing else to do if we're not gonna go forward.
This is purely a hypothetical situation. But let's say that everybody's on board, the city, I mean, the county has its hearings, it goes through the process of setting forth the district, and the dollars are recognized and deemed to be reasonable, and there's a vote taken. Let's say that after the vote is taken, and sometime down the road, hue and cry of the neighborhood or whatever, after they become fully aware of what they're gonna have to pay on an annual basis, they object and say it's excessive, and then the county commission follows their lead and say, we agree, it's too excessive, and decides to terminate the contract because it allows them to do that. Well, we're stuck holding the bag. So there should be a termination date that will prevent the county from backing out of the agreement upon the one ability to determine that the costs are excessive.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. Okay.
And I agree with
agree.
that concept. I
Yes.
think it should be time sensitive.
it should.
Okay.
There should be some formal submission and then time frame in which they have to respond.
And look, I apologize for being
No, it's
so
okay.
legal, but
Yeah, I
that's
just wanted to
my job.
understand what you mean.
All right, so, along the same lines, and again, this is, in section 5, at the top of page 7, where it discusses the obligations of the county to impose the assessments, and it says, and subsequently transfer to the city the annual assessments collected by county for the MSBU. But it doesn't really say by what date they're going to be transferring that money to us. And it should indicate whatever works out best for them and for us, but there should be a date each year by which they're obligated to give us the money that they've collected on our behalf. So that's just, again, sort of I would insert the word, and subsequently transfer to the city no later than blank of each year. That way we have a mechanism to enforce should, for whatever reason, they decide to keep the money in their banks to get more interest instead of transferring it to us.
Okay.
Nancy?
Well, we already have a lot mowing program where they do assess, and they do collect, and they do pay us. I mean, is there not already something in place that
Yeah,
we're,
they pay, as people pay their property taxes. Sometimes they pay in November, get a 4% discount, January, I mean, they pay us.
So no later than April 15th.
Well,
Sharon Nippenberg, Controller for the city. The lot mowing is a good example of our district, but this is going to be a county district. So they will actually receive the funds. And the simplest thing, if you don't mind, would be to just say within 30 days of receipt. So that would be reasonable. So whatever they collect in November, they give to us by December, the end of December, whatever they collect in December, they give to us in January. So within 30 days of receipt. It's very simple.
Fine,
I like
Good.
it.
thank you.
Thank you.
The controller, she's here controlling us.
Why reinvent the wheel, you know?
Okay, then in the paragraph, section 6A, there's a statement that says, neither the county nor the city shall unreasonably withhold issuance of utility construction permit, it should actually be permits, required by the city for any sewer collection facilities to be constructed within rights-of-way or utility easements owned or controlled by either of them, and each shall promptly process each permit or license application. I think it's just a matter of oversight, neglect on the drafter, but the permits, construction permits and authorizations will also be coming, if not exclusively, from the county, since it's on county right-of-way, within unincorporated areas of the county. So I would simply strike the word city from that sentence, and so it would read, neither the county nor the city shall unreasonably withhold issuance of a utility construction, I guess permit is okay then, required for the sewer collection facilities to be constructed within rights of way, et cetera, et cetera.
Perfect.
In section 7 on page 8, where it talks about the county's obligations, it says, the county shall be responsible for establishing and governing an MSBU for imposing assessments against property benefited by the proposed sewer collection facilities, and for transferring assessed there's a typo there, it should be proceeds, to the city until the capital costs of same are fully paid. Now, I suspect that this is a form that the county uses, and so it doesn't necessarily take into consideration issues that the county wouldn't have, but since this involves the city too, I would be concerned about leaving out from those obligations the obligation not only to impose the assessments, but to collect the assessments. And that would also take into consideration what happens if the assessments are delinquent, or not only delinquent, which is late, but aren't paid at all. So there should be language in here that would say that should the county fail to seek the collection of any unpaid assessments, the city shall have the right to seek such delinquent assessments in the name of the county. And I would also note that if the property is to be, this is under state law, if the property is sold for taxes because they haven't been paid, and no one bids on the certificate, then under the state statute, that land would go to the county. So that leaves the city with no means to get reimbursed for the assessment that wasn't paid as a result of that. So I think we probably need to, and I don't know, since I haven't had a chance to do the research, whether, even though it says county, whether the courts have said, well, you also read city or whoever. I would want to make sure that if it goes to the county, then the county will promptly transfer that to the city,
The property.
the property. Yeah. So in essence, there's two things here. First, as part of the county's obligations, we're obligating the county to not only impose the assessments, but also to collect, which means that they go through the process, whatever that process is, of making sure that it's sold for taxes. And then if this county gets the proceeds, obviously they'll send it to us. But if they only get the land, then we get the land so that we could sell the land for the proceeds.
David, is there a possibility there might be a conflict of interest on rights to the land if there were some other types of liens?
Well, there would be, but I think assessments of this nature would have priority. Typically utility liens and things would have a priority, but and that priority would supersede any mortgage or whatever. But this is and if there was a mortgage, well, again, however that tax sale works, we're either gonna get proceeds or typically we get the land, and hopefully, because of the nature of that subdivision, this will never happen. Or hopefully, if we get the land, we can then sell it, and the buyer would then start paying the assessments. But it's just it was just something that came out, jumped out to me as missing in the agreement.
Well, would it be acceptable if they did get the land back, but we got the satisfaction of the lien? Why would we necessarily have to, because eventually they would have to sell the property. I mean, do we really want to say we want the property transferred to the city and then we have to go through all of that? Or can we stipulate that we would like the county to satisfy our lien?
We could certainly ask for that. I don't know that we would get that. Obviously, we're shelling out the money, and we want to make sure that money comes to us to pay off the bond or whatever it is, however we're financing it. And if there's a delinquency, and we don't really have a say in how that's going to be enforced, and under state law, if it's not sold, we don't even get the property, we're out of luck. So, I mean, there's some language that we could work on that would make sure that we're made whole if that situation arises.
Yeah, that's what,
That's the
whether,
key.
whatever's,
Whatever
yeah,
it
whatever
is.
they're accept,
So is it,
And that's all I have, and I apologize, but I mean, I just thought we needed
so it
a
needs some work, needs some more work,
little bit.
yeah.
Okay.
so
Okay.
as an alternative, just a thought, is there a possibility that an interlocal agreement, if the property owners were willing, is there a possibility that an interlocal agreement to annex the property into the city would change all of these requirements? Or is that, would we still be dealing with a similar situation?
I'm going to answer that question in a hypothetical, abstract way, and that is that if the area was annexed into the city, we would not have to be dealing with the county at all.
So there is an option.
Yes, there's an option.
Have they ever been approached or
They're not
approached us?
contiguous.
You're not continuing.
Oh, it
Well,
would have to be a,
They don't.
Right.
If an interlocal agreement
We have
takes
to go
place,
through the whole process of an interlocal agreement. Do you remember what that is?
a lot of time and a lot of money, I think.
well, let's see if we can work this out. Have we had any of this same situation in another area? Okay, so this is,
Yeah, and I don't even think, I did some very quick research, I don't even think the county has established an MSBU for sewage before.
They have it now.
They have to, by now.
With,
How do you think they're doing their sewers now?
Yeah, I mean,
well,
they're-
I just copied off of the county's website, the districts that they've established for MSBU's. And they were all drainage
He's-
and water. you know.
MSBU.
They're doing the Spring Lake sewer now. and they're
Are they doing it
assessing-
as a MSBU or MSTU?
Oh,
Well,
could
there's-
be an MSTU.
Yeah, okay, well, these are the MSBU's, and none of them have been done for sewage, as far as I can tell. There's
Why
nothing
would-
wrong with that, statute allows them to do that.
What are these two U's?
A benefit unit and a taxing unit.
Okay.
Different mechanisms in order to provide assessments for various services.
Right,
TUs are based on the assessed value of your property.
it's a form of ad valorem
And
tax.
and the BU is a flat amount similar to what we do with our canal assessment districts.
Right.
Well, it
It's a-
seems
it's a-
like the
it's-
sewer would be a BU because you're not basing it on, or are you? You're basing it on the value of the home.
Well, typically what's done, I mean, there's a number of different ways to do it, but typically what you do is you would take the total cost of the system and either divide it equally by the number of properties that are served, so everybody pays the same, or you could do it by, there's another way of doing it by the number of footage or what have you. But with a sewer system, the way you would typically do it, I think, is just divide it out equally. And that's the difference between a TU and a BU. Benefit units, those assessments are not taxes.
Right.
They're just assessments. And so it doesn't affect your overall millage rate.
It's under the line.
Yeah, but the statute as it relates to MSBU's, allows us to enforce the non-payment in the same way as taxes would be enforced by way of the tax sale certificates, et cetera.
So what should we do with this right now? Should we do anything as far as
Well, let's
motions?
try to
We can bring it back May 4th.
bring it back to the next meeting.
I think
Okay.
the county was gonna take it at the end of May, is that right?
So we
Yeah,
don't
The
really need a
county,
motion?
the county's on a deadline, so if we cannot come to some agreement, we'll just put it off for a year.
As long as there was a consensus that you're okay with the changes I proposed, then we'll come back with a revised draft.
Yes, there was
Okay.
consensus.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Howard, I
And as
promise-
long as the county agrees.
Yeah.
Well, then, yeah, it's coming back to us anyway.
They're the ones who are doing it
That's
for
gotta
us.
happen.
It's coming back to us before it goes back to them,
Well,
correct?
he's
No.
just saying if it does.
No?
Shouldn't we get this in front of the county first to see if they agree?
Well,
Well, I think our task will be, as staff, is to come up with specific language that we've talked about and run it by the attorney that's working
Right.
with the county and
Right.
see if they have any problem with that.
Yeah,
so if they accept it, then,
then we're fine.
Well,
Okay.
except it being the county staff, it probably at that point wouldn't go before the county commission yet.
Right, but
Right.
it wouldn't necessarily have to come back to us.
Correct.
Because we have consensus on the
It should come back to you at the next meeting so that you approve the draft and vote on it and
Okay.
send it.
So we'll either have it ready or not. I mean, we'll send it to them and see where they go with it.
Okay. All right, and now Tom's pulling the comp plan, EAR, intergovernmental coordination element, the ear ice.
Yes, D1, and the conversation that we just had will play to some extent a role in a conversation that I intend to bring forward on this comprehensive plan, the intergovernmental coordination element. And for the benefit of those in the audience and those at home, if Joan could do a very brief summary of what the intergovernmental coordination element is, I would appreciate it.
For the record, Joan LeBeau, Urban Design. This gives us the ability, the intergovernmental coordination element gives us the ability to work with the different organizations that are out there. The county, all of the state departments, all of the local Southwest Florida Regional Planning Council, the school board, and it just sets up some processes that allow us some ability to sit down with them, discuss our items, so that as we're moving forward in our vision planning, we are meeting all of the requirements that they all have in effect, and it's a regional approach. That's it in a nutshell.
That's fine, thank you. And one of the changes that have been proposed in this element is changing the schedule or the frequency of meetings with the county from 4 times a year to on an as-needed basis. And I reject the notion that lowering the bar for that type of a meeting will improve our governmental relations, at least with the county is where I see the issue. Now, we haven't had a meeting in over 3 years with the county. Now, I'm not saying that by leaving the plan time frequencies the way that it is currently might have resolved the situation that we had with our watershed or with the overlay. But I don't think that we should make it easier to avoid this type of interaction. And I just want to get your feelings on it.
I think you're right on. The only way to develop relationships is to sit down and converse, whatever the issue is. And if you're going to say, well, as needed, sometimes it's just, I think, appropriate to sit down and have a cup of coffee and talk. And then you might find something that comes up that you didn't want to avoid that you wouldn't have realized. So I think you're right on.
Well, I think this is a joint meeting, quarterly joint meeting, which has not been happening. Has it ever happened quarterly?
Oh, God. Back in 2005 or 6, we were tried to meet quarterly for a very brief time. Then we went to semi-annually, then we went to annually, and now we don't. I guess our only point is, if you put in there quarterly, it's only of words, because if the county doesn't agree, and if it's not in their comp plan, it doesn't happen. I mean,
And you're right, but
I don't know what,
That's my question, Howard. What is in their comp plan?
It is not in their comp plan. They have removed it as well.
Removed it altogether?
Yes, as quarterly joint meetings, yes.
so they, we can leave it in on a quarterly basis, but it's kind of,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't disagree with the intent, and I certainly think that if we have meetings on a more regular basis, perhaps it might help facilitate discussion so that it might be more on an equal basis. But we've run into obstacles in trying to create that environment where we just want to sit down and talk, and it hasn't happened. And so I think for us to put it in as periodic gives us the opportunity continue to try to promote it without,
But if we take it out, we're indicating perhaps a desire that the quarterly meetings are not as important in our vision as they may have been. We have issues coming up. For instance, the library, there was supposed to be some joint communication between the city council and the county commission. Who knows if that's going to take place? We have the courthouse expansion taking place in the downtown area. I mean, we certainly want a seat at the table during that discussion. Maybe if we request a meeting, it'll happen. Maybe it won't happen. Maybe if we leave the quarterly, I don't know. But to lower the bar, in my opinion, is not a way for us to go to indicate our desire for better relationships, better conversations, more of them. That's all I'm suggesting.
Kim?
Well, if it's not in their comp plan, I mean, it's really just we're just putting it in there. I hate to say as need, but I guess if we say yearly and we meet as needed. Now, I know we all meet with the commissioners, we're, even that we're paired with or not paired with. But that doesn't seem to really resolve anything. I mean, I know I've had a lot of meetings about stuff that hasn't happened because we're just talking and having a cup of coffee, and it doesn't help at all. But,
I mean,
leaving it in there is
Really-
ridiculous when they're not meeting. So.
But this
and
goes
if
out-
it's not in their comp plan at all,
I mean, to Tom's point, this goes out to 2050 now?
40.
2040? I mean, leaving it in there really is no harm or foul. It just,
Correct.
if we could, we would, right? If we could
Right.
meet quarterly with them,
If
we
needed
would.
to, yeah.
Quarterly
Yeah.
might be a lot.
Then semi-annually,
Yes.
twice a year, that would be fine.
I think we'd like to do.
Quarterly would be a lot.
Quarterly would be tough. Semi-annual, I think I could live with.
I think that just to want to put a different layer in here, and I apologize if it complicates it, but it seems to me in this discussion, the concept of meeting with county commissioners on a regular basis would be something that's more important to us than they've expressed an importance to themselves. We're politicians here. All of us have been lobbied by people that are out there right now for various reasons, because they had something that they wanted to talk to us about, and they wanted to have our ear. We meet with all the county commissioners on our own in various other meetings that have completely different agendas than what we're discussing here. But we have that opportunity as individuals among ourselves to lobby them and impress upon them that we would like this to happen. So maybe we need to be proactive as a group, the five of us, in our casual conversations at other meetings to try to push this concept, because I think this is a concept that would benefit us all. And actually, David has a very good idea. If we were able to successfully lobby our counterparts at the county to enter in this kind of dialogue, because I think it would be very important and advantageous to us all.
I think, speaking as an individual to a commissioner versus speaking as a collective group of council members from the city of Punta Gorda puts it at an entirely different level. And all of us, over time, have had meetings with our respective partners. I have slacked off. I've been disappointed about the results of those conversations. And so that's where I don't know that would be the answer.
I'm not saying that is the answer. I'm saying that's the prelude to developing the answer. If we all individually lobby 2 or 3 of the commissioners on our own, and then when we approach them as a group, they've already had these conversations and realized that, one, we're serious, and maybe we've put the seed. In the sales, we used to have what was called the velvet hammer, and that's when you would deal with a customer, and you knew it was best for them, but they had a tunnel vision, and they were going down a different direction. And you would listen to them dutifully, because they would have a good point, and then you would interject your thought and say, but what if, and walk away. And when you came back a month later, they had an idea. The point was, is we all got going in the right direction. We all had to modify a little bit. I'm only suggesting is that we try to plant and nurture the seeds so that our roots will kind of intertwine together. And I think we just have to do some work in it, because I don't think it's just gonna happen on its own.
It's not, because there's, in my opinion, they're sending us a message, because we got very aggressive with the topics that we wanted to discuss, and it was too aggressive. And so, in that vein, I think they've backed off, and they've, basically sent us a message that it was too much, and some of it was a little premature. And we all know what that's like, to air something in a public meeting prematurely. It doesn't usually work out too well until you have more information. So that's an optimistic way to look at it, and we can definitely approach that. But in this, I think semi-annual for this language, I'm fine with that. I mean, that would be my goal. It's a goal, I guess.
I think it's a great goal, and I'll tell you, I have done that, Gary, exactly what you're saying. So if everyone else wants to do it, and probably some of you have done it. and
We have.
I've gotten, that yes, they want to do it, but it still doesn't happen, so.
But, and if, I'm saying is if we build the relationships, we could say semi-annual, but there may be something that comes up because we've already established the relationship. We can have other meetings impromptu meetings in between.
So should we say as needed?
That's right.
I think it should be semi-annual and/or.
I would agree with Tom in the case of, there's much more impact when we as a body are speaking in a public forum, and we all have one voice. And it's, I use every opportunity that I can when I'm, either when it's been a prearranged or when I come in contact with a commissioner, just to talk about some of the issues. And it's easy for them to take one particular point of view, which may or may not be consistent with what we would like. But if we were all together, the conversation might be different. And so I think to try to engage, which we've attempted, in my opinion, I don't know if I felt that we were being overly aggressive. I think we were being misinterpreted as being overly aggressive, perhaps, when all we really wanted to do was just talk. And so, I would
What
agree.
language can we live with so we can move on?
I think semi-annual is probably,
Or as needed.
Semi-annual or as needed? Can you live with that, Tom?
Sure.
Semi-annual or
or-
as needed?
You want or as needed or and as needed?
And as.
And
needed.
as needed.
and,
Semi-annual and as needed.
Okay.
So we need a motion to approve this, because we don't,
Make a motion to approve the
I'll
change.
second.
so we have a motion, a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. Okay,
Thank you for your indulgence.
sure.
No, thank you for bringing
I
it
think
up.
it's a good point.
Do we want to take a 5-minute now? Okay. We will take a 6-minute and come back at 10:35.
Are you setting your timer?
We exceeded our 6 minutes, so now we're back in session. And we will be moving into our regular agenda, which will include the budget items, unfinished business, and then recommendation from city officers. So this would be the time, if you wanted to speak on Phase 2 for additional waterway access, master agreement for drainage improvements to the Boca Grande area, status report for the budget, and then the results of the Tripoli Boulevard traffic study in Burnt Store Isles. So now would be the time, if you want to speak on any of those items. The procedure is you come to the podium, and as soon as you state your name, I will start the timer, and you will have a visual clue, so we're all on board with your 3 minutes.
Where's the light?
Kay gets to be our first
It's
one.
on the end of the
Oh,
base,
okay.
it's directed to them so they can see it, so they don't have to. The good thing about the lights is that it's visual and they don't have to stop,
I like
and
it.
try to look at something that.
Mayor, manager, and the rest of the city council. My name is Catherine Mooney, and I am here regarding the Tripoli study. The reason why I'm here is because I am at the part of Tripoli that can't get out of my development. Picture this, this is 41, this is Monaco. Okay, people from Tripoli turning right, coming up this way, a lot of construction people. People from Monaco that live all the way down here, zoom, zoom, zoom. Then the people from the shopping center are coming out this way. Little Catherine here is going, watching for the traffic. I can't get out. Is there any way that a four-way stop could kind of be put there? I know a lot of people when it's, okay, I see the green light. A lot of people that are visitors to our area sometimes will stop at Tripoli and Monaco, thinking that there is a stop sign there. So they'll stop. And I'm just thinking, it would be safer for us to come out. It would be a lot more convenient. I know we have discussed this in the past before to have a four-way stop. I'm not quite sure why they can't do that. But we, on this end of Tripoli, have no way of getting out when there's busy traffic going back and forth. So I know that you've done a feasibility study, you know, not to do something as far as a shopping center is concerned. Once the shopping center is closed in October for 6 months, we might be okay. I'm not sure, but there's still going to be that traffic going this way. And, you know, I just like to be able to get out. I travel that way a lot. It's not that I just go out once a week or whatever. It is kind of a, so if it's something that you can consider, look at, do a study on or something, I'd sure appreciate that. Thank you very much, and I didn't even run out of time.
Thank you.
It works. Gosh, Jack would be happy, Howard.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council staff. My name is Lynn Matthews, and I would like to speak quickly about the Bird Pass cut-through. One quick question, and I don't know if who can answer it for me, but I understand that the location has been firmly established by City Council, but I'm wondering if anyone had ever given second consideration to the proposal that Mr. Don Kidwell had submitted to all of you and spoke to several of you about. I was just made aware of this about 3 or 4 days ago, but I understand that this proposal that he had was also one that is very feasible, and I would like to ask you to give some reconsideration to the location of the proposal he submitted. And also, I don't quite understand why we're at the stage where we are proposing to spend more money and move into the permitting process when we haven't even entered into an agreement with the Mr. McQueen to purchase the property that is in question. And also, we haven't firmly established what the assessment district would be. I would really like to find all of that out before the city spends any more money and moves forward. I understand we want to keep this going. I understand the need to keep the project moving, and I don't disagree with that. But I think that those two things need to be firmly established before you can proceed and spend any more money and work on permitting. And that's all I had to say. I ask for your consideration of those ideas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Martha Beretta, and I am here to advocate for the establishment of a cultural heritage center in Punta Gorda. I am very proud to be the descendant of one of the very first families to settle here in Punta Gorda, and I remember it being a quaint fishing village, and I've seen it grow to a cosmopolitan city. I also remember when there were only 2 groups, racial ethnic groups here, but now we are a very diverse cultural community. We enjoy much of what we have that we feel is very important here because of the different cultures who have come here and have made this a very inclusive environment. But many of the secular and the religious groups do not, they are informal in nature and they do not have a place to meet or exhibit. The proposed Cultural Heritage Center that appears in the 2017 budget will offer a functional space to conduct many events which will draw visitors to our city to see exhibits and will also draw family reunions and people who will come here during our slow summer months. Support for this Cultural Heritage Center is broad and deep, and some of the people are here today. If you raise your hand, if you are here in support of the center, okay, we have support for this. There are many groups that are on board and who are very excited about finally the opportunity to exhibit and to talk about their culture and their contributions to our city and our county. We are very pleased that the president of Florida Gulf Coast, Dr. Bradshaw, has said that he is proud to support and to partner with the Blanchard House in this effort. He also recommends and supports the acquisition by the city of Punta Gorda of the house at 409 Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard. Finally, he says that this Cultural Heritage Center will be an excellent draw for tourists and for local businesses and will promote the cultural inclusiveness of Punta Gorda. And I am finishing. We have met with the Charlotte County Tourism Office Director Lori Steiner, and she's very enthusiastic to lend her support for this venture because she believes that having the cultural center will put heads on beds during the off-season. In addition, we know that cultural tourism is growing at a very fast rate in the world. 37% of the people who visit or tourists are cultural tourists. And we know now that the state of Florida, I just got information yesterday, that they are promoting the establishment of a cultural center. And as our lobbyist said, I met with him briefly, he said it looks good. And he said we're already on the map, and if we establish this Cultural Heritage Center, we will be known throughout the state as an inclusive community and as a tourist destination. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Mary Ucera, and I am the president of the Spanish American Society of Charlotte County. And we are pleased to lend our support for the proposed Cultural Heritage Center in Punta Gorda, Florida. The Spanish American Society of Charlotte County has been in existence for the past 25 years. The society was formed to act as a cultural, civic, and social organization to encourage and preserve the rights of Spanish-speaking people through active participation in matters that are pertinent to our community. The objectives of the society are to promote friendship among its members and the community, and to further the social and intellectual well-being of Spanish-speaking families through civic efforts. The Punta Gorda and Port Charlotte area is rich in diversity. There are residents of many different backgrounds from different countries. The interchange of cultures via the Cultural Center, including definitive programs for area citizens to learn, exchange ideas, and participate in the community, will be an added plus to Punta Gorda and Charlotte County. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Mary Ellen Taylor, and I am the president of the American Czech-Slovak Club of Southwest Florida. Our members range living in the areas between Tampa and Fort Myers on the West Coast. We have a sister group or brother group, whatever you want to call them, on the East Coast, and they are the American Czech and Slovak Cultural Club of Southeast Florida. We were established here in 1983, so I haven't figured out how different we are from the Spanish club. But again, our mission is to promote and save the heritage of the peoples from not only the Czech and Slovak republics, but also Eastern Europe. And so we meet monthly. We have our annual picnic here in Punta Gorda, drawing people from from the West Coast. We've been at Ponce Park. This year we had an overflow crowd. We had musicians that came down from Anna Maria Island to play their accordions. Since it was also spring break, they had grandchildren that sang in their native tongue, sat on Grandpa's laps. It was something to behold. And I know one of the city employees came, and I thought, oh, he's going to say I have too many people here. They were spilling out of the shelter, and he just couldn't believe the group of people that were here. And he loved it, and he happened to be of some Czech descent. So I don't know who he was. I maybe recognize him in his little outfit, but he was one of our city council members. Anyway, we're here, and we had our last meeting for the season yesterday. I presented this idea to the people. They were very excited because we, too, want to preserve the history for the next generation, because there's also a book coming out shortly called Cooking with Grandma, and many of these different groups will be featured in the book with the recipes, and that's our purpose. And this is just a perfect area to bring in some of our handicrafts and some of our places. We talked about having a street fair with all the cultural groups. It holds a future for this area. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Myrna Cherry, and I am a member of the board of Blanchard House as well as the CDC in Punta Gorda. But I am also a member of a small synagogue in Punta Gorda called Temple Bethel. We're of Punta Gorda. We're a small Reconstructionist synagogue. And on behalf of that group and my people, I think that a local community center where so many cultures will get together and present their history and their background, and that the Jewish community could have input into such a cultural center would be such an asset for this community, for Punta Gorda, and I urge you to support it. I can envision all kinds of exhibits, maybe a Holocaust exhibit, maybe exhibits celebrating holidays. Our holiday of Passover is approaching. We have wonderful holidays of freedom and of liberation and of significance, and we would love to be able to present this to the community and for the community to learn about us and for us to learn about other cultures. So I urge your support of a cultural center in Punta Gorda. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak on regular agenda items? Please make your way to the podium. Regular agenda items? Anybody else? Please come forward.
Hello, I'm Jaha Cummings. I'm Vice President of the Tribute Woods United Association. I'm also on the board of Bernie St. Russell CDC, and just wanted to we'd like to thank you for the meeting that was at Cooper Street that Howard had a few weeks ago. It has allowed the community to share their vision for the budget, and just like to give our support for the budget items that in regard to Tribute Woods at this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to come up with him in support and say thank you.
Anybody else? Regular agenda items? Okay, seeing none, we will move into the budget.
The first, let me go.
Yeah, the items under the budget, not the
budget.
Not the budget. The first one is the award of the amendment to the Phase 2 engineering and permitting services for the additional waterway access.
Yes, this is, we've been working on a contract for Phase 2 so that we can get Hans Wilson and Associates started with basically the guts of the work, which is engineering, design, permitting. The contract talks about 660 days, which is almost 2 years, which is what we thought. Could be more, could be less, but it's a long, long process. We wanted to have on the same agenda the assessment methodology contract so we could get the firm started to develop the assessment methodology. Our city attorney has to talk with the attorney who's, for the firm who's going to do it, and resolve one little piece of the contract so we can get that accomplished. So we'll have that hopefully to you at the next meeting. The assessment methodology will not take long. It's certainly not going to take 2 years. It'll take a few months to put together. So I know the question was raised about the property owner. We've already started informal discussions with the property owner. He's looking at various ways on which, he's very well aware that the route goes through his property. And he's looking at various ways to accommodate that. We have nothing firm yet. We're not negotiating. We just opened the conversation up. So we know that that has to be congruent with the design and permitting. So the reason the design and permitting is in front of you today and not waiting for the assessment methodology, which will be next week, is that we already know it's a 2-year, at least a 2-year process, we think. So it's going to take time. So you can discuss it, decide to wait, to do it now, or whatever you want to do. But we know it's a process.
Kim?
My only concern, I mean, Lynn had a good point. If we go ahead and sign this and it's almost $60,000, and then we get that methodology, and then the people go, no, no. You know, I know we've had lots of meetings about it and all of that. Say we put the money out, what happens if it changes?
We stop.
I know, but are we out the $60,000?
We're out whatever we spend.
Well, I just wanted to make that clear.
Because technically, we're treating it as a loan from one of the funds.
Yeah.
Originally, it was through the PGI canal, but you're suggesting that we
Take it down
we
from this.
move it into a more of a reserve fund loan,
Yes.
which I would be okay with. I mean, what, as far as the Phase 1 contract, where are we at? When is that expiring, or is
Well,
the
that's
work
done.
that's done? So in order to keep this moving, in a sense, I agree that we need to start the negotiations with the property owner, because that could take some time. But I don't, you know, if we really want to keep this moving.
I
Gary?
would like to see, I guess, just to finish up, I think I would like to see, not necessarily the done deal with the property owner, but at least the methodology of who's gonna be, you know, assessed and where that's gonna be, and kind of do it all at once. I think I would feel more comfortable with that.
Gary?
Going down this process, I just have a couple of comments that I'd like to make. One is not actually germane to what we're talking about, but a sidebar, and I wanted to be able to say this with David here, because I don't know that it should be or shouldn't be a concern of us, but when you undergo a project like that, there are people that you speak to on a day-to-day basis, or in the grocery store, or at the club, or whatever, that are under the impression that this is going to be a done deal and project's going to be completed in 2 years, and that's not the case. The case is in 2 years, or whatever that period is, 660 days plus a couple of days, or whatever that is, the value that this study is going to bring to us is we're going to know, can it be done, or we're going to know that it can't be done. Either way, it's got a value. It's got a value because it brings the issue to head. There's, I believe, a significant degree of confidence that this can be a doable project, but that doesn't mean that it's still not a guarantee. So we could go down this road, as you point out, Kim, and we could be out the cost of the study, the $65,000. That does still have a value, because it has a value because it brings the issue and the time and the effort spent on staff and so forth all to a head, so that if it does become negative, at least we know that we can't go forward anymore, and we don't have to waste time, energy, and the treasure to expend that time over the next decades, that we would continue talking about it. On the other hand, if it is a doable deal, a doable project, then we can go on with confidence and say, okay, let's go forward, and we do what we have to do as far as negotiations. I do agree that we should have the conversations. I do agree that we should start looking at things in parallel as far as what the assessments and so forth. I absolutely do agree with all that. I think we need to go on forward in that in parallel, but we still have to keep in mind, I have a little, and this is what I wanted to point out to David, because it's something that concerns me, is I've spoken to a couple of people that were actually looking at properties in the bird section with a realtor, and the realtor was under the impression, this is a gonna happen project. This is the school that's definitely gonna be built. And some of these properties may be being represented erroneously as this is a real thing that's absolutely gonna be happening. And I wouldn't want that to, if it didn't happen, to have any backlash on the city as far as we're going. And I don't know if maybe we should write a letter, propose a letter to the Board of Realtors or something like that, or if we even need to protect ourselves in any manner 3, 4, 5 years down the road if we do not have a positive outcome on the project.
Legally, there's no risk for the city. I think it would be helpful if the Board of Realtors don't understand what the status is, to let them know, and maybe to instruct their agents not to talk about this project, because it's not something that they can represent is going to happen, and they're creating a liability for themselves. So that would be our public service, not only to the agents, but prospective buyers.
Nancy?
In looking at this, I don't have a problem with the contract. I think we're putting the cart before the horse. I know that Howard has said we're going to have the assessment district come up at the next meeting. We haven't even had a poll of the residents of the assessment district. I mean, we really have a lot of homework to do before we actually start the engineering. And I think that this is great, but we've got a couple steps that I think we need to complete before we can get to this point.
Is there support for a poll of the assessment district, which she just mentioned? I mean, is there support from this council for that? Because if there is, then that's what we need to do before we enter into this contract.
Mayor, I think, as evidenced by the meetings that have taken place over the past 6 months and the 20 years of discussion about this project, that poll has been taken.
I don't agree. I mean, I understand there's been a lot of people that in support of it, but I think as one council member, we're going to impose an assessment, a large assessment on a group that this is a brand-new project. This isn't maintenance work, this is a brand-new project. And so from a technical standpoint, I understand the outcry that there has been, but I feel like we need to do the right steps. It is within our power to go ahead and impose it.
Kim?
I agree. I mean, I've been to the meetings, everyone's there, but we all know when the rubber hits the road is when the money comes up and what it's gonna cost to do the project. And if we know what the assessment district is, I mean, if it's gonna be in a couple weeks, I know this has been talked about for decades and decades, but I also worry about us putting all this money out, because it's not just this money, we've already had, we finished another contract, and we're going along, and then, it may just be gone. And this is real money that could, our other parts of the community could benefit from having. So we represent the people. So the people in that district need to want, I mean, they're going to be paying for it. I don't feel comfortable spending someone else's money, especially if I just would like them to know, you're going to pay for it. You want it, you're gonna pay for it, and because what I heard is everyone wanted it, but when they started talking about paying for it, that's when things are, well, I don't think this should happen and that should happen, and I don't think this group should pay. I think everybody should pay. I think it benefits everyone. I got more of those conversations when we started saying this particular area was gonna pay. And we don't really know what that area is yet.
I mean, we've looked at the areas.
We know what the area is.
Right. But they don't.
What we don't, you're gonna get in 2 weeks, assuming we can get the language settled, an assessment methodology contract, so the firm can establish the methodology. And from that methodology, we can then determine